Welcome to Author Update, and we've got a massive episode packed with some breaking news that could put some serious money in your pocket, particularly if you have older books. We're also going to expose a really dangerous book club and review scam that you may have already been hit with, and we're going to explore how Novel November is stepping up to replace the defunct NaNoWriMo and so much more. I'm Thomas Umstead Jr.
And I'm Jonathan Sugar. And our first story of the day is the Anthropic copyright settlement gets the green light. So if you guys haven't been following this so far, Anthropic has had a class lawsuit brought against it for using authors' works. Authors are now looking to get paid for the stuff that Anthropic is using for training their AI on in their database. The U.S. District Judge, William Alsop, has granted preliminary approval now to the $1.5 billion class action settlement. This basically equates to about $3,000 per published work that's in this class action set. If your works were used to get in this, there is a list that you can check to see if you are on it.
Well,
And Thomas, you have more details about that.
Yeah, there will be a list. There are a bunch of unofficial lists that various organizations have been putting out. That's their best guess at what the actual list is going to be. The court is going to release its own list, or the class is going to have its own list. With these class action settlements, there's often going to be a website. Once that website is live, we'll for sure cover it here. But just because you're not on the list, that author... what is it? The Atlantic has, or the Authors Guild, just because you're not on those lists, it doesn't mean that you're not included. And just because you are on those lists, it doesn't mean you are included. There's a lot of other factors that go into it. Wait for the final list before celebrating or buying a new car or whatever.
So one of my favorite parts of this story is that Alsop, this is a judge who is known for giving really good rulings on tech cases and stuff like that. He deemed the revised terms sufficient, $3,000, but this is so key. He noted that the payout is far below the maximum statutory damages. So he threw a warning shot at these other AI companies that might be using these things, because saying, hey, I'm not punishing you as bad as I could be, so y'all watch out, because this is a lot of money you could be dealing with right now.
Yeah, so a few things to note. If you're in the class, and there's 500,000 books that are in the class. So if you've been published back in the day or up until 2 or 3 years ago, there's a good chance that you're in the class, particularly if your book was in the top 500,000 most popular books. If you're traditionally published, you're likely only to get half of the money. So traditionally published books are going to get about $1,500 minus fees and whatnot. And maybe nothing, depending on your contract with your publisher. If you're independently published, you're likely going to get the full $3,000 minus the fees. There's a lot of piglets at the trough who get to eat before you do. But the starting price is $3,000 per book. So if you have 10 books in the class and you're independently published, that's $30,000. This is significant money for some authors. Now, if you're traditionally published and you have a rights reversion letter, I believe in many cases you may be able to get the full $3,000. So some of you listening, you were traditionally published, your publisher issued a rights reversion letter, and so you're going to be able to get both halves. Now, I suspect that moving forward, it's going to become a lot harder to get rights reversion letters from publishers, because this is going to be a massive windfall for publishers. Publishers are struggling right now. So indie authors are gaining in the lists. We've been covering this regularly, that traditional publishers, their revenue is dropping every month. Indie authors' revenue is climbing every month, right? This is a trend that's been going on for years. And so for the traditional publishers who are hungry, they're going to be getting checks for tens of thousands, maybe hundreds of thousands of dollars from Anthropic, maybe millions, actually. This is $1.5 billion pot of money, and publishers are going to be able to get half of all of the books in that pot that are traditionally published. And I'm guessing that the majority of the books in the pot are traditionally published books, because those are the kinds of books that would have a registered copyright and be notable enough for Anthropic to train on. So there's millions and millions of books. Most indie authors don't register their copyrights, so most indie authors wouldn't be eligible. in which, so this is another change that I suspect a lot of indie authors are now going to start paying the $35 per book to register their copyright, because in addition to all of the protections that you get from having a registered copyright, it's now like buying a lottery ticket. You get featured in one of these class action lawsuits, because this lawsuit only covers Anthropic, and it only covers them pirating the books. It doesn't cover OpenAI and ChatGPT. It doesn't cover Google's Gemini. It doesn't cover XAI. It doesn't cover Qwen or DeepSeek or any of the Chinese models, although good luck getting any money out of the Chinese models for copyright violation.
Yeah. So, I mean, and in some cases, this is the only money the publishing company has made off that book. And so if you're connecting what we talked about before, like a lot of traditionally published books aren't even selling 12 copies, but suddenly you can make $3,000 off of it, it might be a whole lot harder to get those reversion letters now, because now there's actually some value in hanging on to this, because if some startup AI company messes up and suddenly you can go after them with a class action suit and make some money off all these dead books in your back catalog, it may be really hard to get a hold of those now.
Although I will say the books that weren't making any money and no one was reading and no one was talking about are far less likely to be included in the class than books that were selling zillions of copies. So J.K. Rowling is for sure going to get paid for every one of her Harry Potter books. But obscure author number 5,
she's not going to feel that.
Yeah. So
I got $30,000.
But I didn't double check this, but I'm pretty sure this is tax-free income too, because money that gained in court cases typically is tax-free. I'm not a lawyer. Check with your CPA, but potential. This is really good, clean money that you just get to spend if you're an author. As soon as that database comes out, we will cover it. But our next story is that, speaking of money, this is your last chance to save money on the Novel Marketing Conference. So the Novel Marketing Conference is a conference that I host. I put together a special conference just for authors who are wanting to sell more books. It's focused on marketing. It's focused on and promotion, and being a good podcast guest, building a good brand, having a book that you're able to articulate why this book is appealing in a way that readers really want to get it. We're going to have a session on Amazon page optimization. So that your Amazon page is good, which is critical for every author. We're going to have a session on book covers, which is critical for every author. A lot of conferences don't have a session on book covers, which is the most important thing for selling a book. We're going to have a whole session on it and a whole lot more. You can learn more at novelmarketingconference.com. Early bird pricing ends in like 3 or 4 days. It's the end of September. So if you want to save money getting your tickets, go to novelmarketingconference.com. The tickets are limited. One of the kinds of tickets, the super ticket, is already sold out, but we do still have some gallery tickets and some standard tickets still available. One more cool thing about this conference is that we put authors into writers groups. That's your group for the whole conference. And of all of the innovations that we've done with this conference, this innovation has had by far the most positive feedback. Authors love being in the writers groups. They often stay in touch long after the conference is over. And we put a lot of effort into placing authors in writers groups with similar authors. And we call it the magic sorting hat, but really it's me sitting down with my team and doing it manually, where we try to match people the best we can. It's like some people are like, oh, I write nonfiction. Can I come to the conference? Like, yes, in fact, we'll put you in a group with other nonfiction authors. And so for you, it really will feel like a nonfiction conference. Whereas if you write romance, you'll be in a group with other romance authors. Last year, we had a group of nothing but romance and women's fiction authors. And they had a great time. So we do our best to match the groups based off of who comes. And you can also request, like if you come with your best friend and you are a fellow author in your writers group and you want to be in a group with that person or not. So we survey you. So it has happened where people are like, I will be in a group with anyone but this one person, because
it's me.
They already know everything about my book, and we want a more broad experience. That's fine. We won't tell them that they were disincluded from your group. So,
novelmarketingconference.com. But Thomas does this sorting thing all the way up to the last minute, because last year I was almost the coach for the romance group, and I was so excited, and then Thomas took the love away out of my life, and I don't believe in love anymore. And
which actually, we also have a coach who's like a more senior author who's kind of the mentor for that group, which I always forget to mention.
I think it was my hysterical laughter every time I brought this up that also got me booted.
Before all the romance authors don't sign up because they're afraid Jonathan's going to be their coach, I will point out that Jonathan worked for a publishing company that published hundreds and hundreds of romance books, and he actually knows the romance market really well. And while he may or may not, and he actually is a developmental editor on romance books. So
yeah,
you wouldn't think of it looking at him.
What? I could be romantic.
Nobody looks at Jonathan like, Fabio, you know, your romance books, you're the guy. But when it comes to like helping make a romance book sell like crazy, he does have a lot of experience in that. I'm not likely going to put him in charge of the romance group this year because I have actual romance authors. But anyway, you can learn more at novelmarketingconference.com. And there is a new scam that is just blowing up. We've even had, I've had people in our community emailing me examples of this recently. Jonathan, I think you've been hit with it.
Yeah, I have several in my inbox right now.
So what is the scam?
So the Nigerians have returned.
Dun, dun, dun. They've realized there's a lot of money in flattering authors, and
oh my goodness, yes. So I'm going
to stick around for a while. So it's really important for you to know this scam.
So of course, the major barrier that the Nigerians have had is that you have a language barrier when you're coming from Nigeria and you're trying to communicate with American authors. You have a language barrier if you're coming from England and you're trying to scam American authors, because in order to scam someone, you need a relationship. You need to say that you're coming from the same place. AI has done away with this barrier. Now AI can actually write the email for the foreign operative, is what we would have called them in the military. Now AI can write it for them
and customize it.
Yes,
and tailor it
so
for
good.
your specific book. So the scammer has not read your book, doesn't actually think that it's great, but the scammer will, using AI, be able to write you an email that tickles every desire you've ever had about people loving you and your book, and talking about how they can help make your book popular. They'll get it in front of book clubs. They'll get it big on social media. And it's all a lie.
It is. So what they're going to try to do is they're going to invite you to a fake book club where you had to pay some kind of spot fee or participation cost. You need to look for these buzzwords. Okay. Spot fee, participation cost. And these fees can range anywhere from $55 to $350, depending on whatever the value is of whatever they're offering you. And how excited they think you are. They're going to have made up book group names. It could be something cute like the Crazy Old Bat Society Book Club, or it could be an actual book group that exists and they're just stealing the name. Oh no, scammers are stealing what? They will try to push through, get the payments through like PayPal's family and friends thing, which if you're going to do one of these things, don't do family and friends. You need to make sure that you have an ability to pursue some kind of refund policy.
No, just don't pay them.
But no, I agree. Don't pay them. But
real book clubs often pay authors to appear. They don't collect money from the author to appear. It's a complete reversal of the direction the money normally flows.
We're looking at enemy behavior here. And enemy behavior is they won't go through PayPal's business side of things because they know you can get the refund. So if you're not sure, and for some reason you still think that they think your book is this hot, then just say, let's go through PayPal's business side of things. It'll cost us a little bit more, but I'll feel better about it. And they will ghost you at that point. There's phony review groups, and this one has been going on for a couple of years, but AI has just made it a whole lot better now. They're pitching access to private communities to thousands of avid readers who are slobbering for your book. I read your book and I know that they will eat this up, and we will get you 750 reviews for the low price of $20 each. But you have to do it today. Also, send us a PDF of your book. They're getting you on multiple levels with this kind of scam. Okay, first of all, they're getting your money. They're getting your data because you're sending payment information to them. And then they're getting the PDF of your book, which is possible for to use for IP theft. So, guys, in the Intel community, this was a big deal. They drilled it into our heads all the time. If the hot Russian girl is really into you, she's not into you.
She's into your intel. Loose lips sink ships.
She likes your clearance.
So a really good rule of thumb is, and this will protect you from almost all of these scams, is that if they're contacting you, it's a scam. That's it. That's all you have to do. If they are reaching out to you and they are initiating the interaction, it's a scam. And this will protect you from 99% of all of these scams, because real marketers, real people who are offering services, are not cold emailing complete strangers that they've never had an interaction with, right? Jonathan offers developmental editing, right? He helps with romance books, but he also helps with a lot of books with violence to get the violence right.
I'm really good at those.
He is a man of violence. And authors who've never been in a fight, who've never been shot at, like to get his feedback and use him as a developmental editor. Jonathan does not go around emailing authors who have written a violent book being like, hey, I really liked your book, but we can make it violent in better ways. I know you don't know me. I'm Jonathan Sugar. Nobody does that. That's not what realistic professionals in this industry do. And so any of those kinds of emails, you can disregard, with one exception, and that is a podcaster reaching out, or journalist, to have you on their show. But when that happens, they never ask for money. Like, I've never charged a guest to come on any of my podcasts. And so if someone's trying to if they've reached out to you cold, it's likely a scam, and with a few exceptions. Right. And the exceptions are if they're not trying to get money out of you. So if somebody reaches out to you and they say, hey, we've got the Crazy Old Coots Book Club. Would you be free sometime on a Tuesday night at 7:00 to speak about your book? We're wanting to feature your book. We can't pay you, but we'd love to have you and promote your book. That's probably legit. That's what a real one looks like. Or, hey, can you come speak to our group? We can't pay you, but we'll buy you lunch. Right. Like, that sort of thing is what you look for. Anytime someone's trying to get money out of an author after reaching out to them, be very, very suspicious. And I should say, Writer Beware has a great breakdown of this particular scam that you can find at writerbeware.blog.
Right.
It looks like everyone in the chat has been hit by these Nigerians.
I know. I've been reading through them and like trying to see, what applies here. So I apologize for the dead space there. But there's really great. If you guys can turn it on in the YouTube replay, turn on the chat, because you're actually missing out a lot on what's going on in here. There is something you need to look for.
Real quick before we go on to the next story. If you're ever in doubt, one of the wonderful uses of authormedia.social is, hey, I'm thinking about using XYZ service. What do y'all think of it? This is a really common post, and you get tons of feedback from other real authors. And most of the time it's like, beware. But sometimes it's like, oh yeah, I've used them. They're great. Here's the results I had. And it's a wonderful community for that sort of thing. Authormedia.social is no longer free because we had Nigerian scammers infiltrate. So there's now a one-time fee of $10 to join. Or if you're a patron already, it's free. So if you're a patron, you can click a link inside of Patreon to get in that way. Also, some of my courses will have links to get in for free. So the reason we charge for it is to try to keep it real authors and no bots and no scammers. And it's actually worked shockingly well.
Nobody wants to pay.
Yeah.
You're scammers, looking for the sick in the week. Like,
yeah. All right. Now we're ready for the next story.
All right. Well, I was going to add something to this story.
Okay.
The very end of the email, look and see if they say something about email me back and let's see if we can work together. They'll always say something like that. They want you to think you're part of a team. that they're helping you. They're doing you a favor by emailing you like this. And they've already flattered you and they buttered you up and they told you everything about your story. I got one for one of my novellas, Blood of Anak, which is actually in my Kickstarter, which is why I think I got it. Because there's been metadata going out on the internet regarding my collection, which is on Kickstarter. Well, I got an email about Blood of Anak, and it was in depth. It was good. I mean, and it hit me in all the right notes. And I'm like, this feels good. This feels good. Where is it? Where is it? Yep, let's work together.
Flattery. Beware the flatterer.
Exactly. You're
I
not
just
as
did an
hot
episode
as
about-
they tell you are.
Yeah.
All right, so we have a new toolbox tool in the patron toolbox, and I'm actually kind of excited about this one because I have done this on a paid basis for people, and I am glad that there is a tool to do it. Thomas, what is this tool?
It's called the Influencer Finder, and this tool I have spent longer working on than any other tool. This is actually one of the very first tools I tried to build, and I could not get it to work. I couldn't get it to work in March or in April or in August, and I finally at the end of September was able to get the Influencer Finder to work 80-90% of the time. This was an unbelievably difficult tool to build. But what you do is you describe your book, you describe your target reader. You can also upload your book if you want to. No, you don't upload your book. You just describe your book, what your genre is and who you're trying to reach. And then which social network you want to target. So booktubers or TikTokers. So this is how I recommend that you do social media. Don't try to become a book talker. Pay a book talker $100 to share your book with their 5,000 friends. This is followers. This can be an incredible investment because that video could go viral on TikTok and get 1 million views and bring in tons of traffic. And somebody who's already built up a following of 5,000 subscribers on TikTok is far more likely to make a viral book about you than you trying to figure out TikTok from scratch.
Right.
And this one almost broke me. There were several, because one of the problems I had with this tool was if it couldn't find the people that you were looking for, it would just hallucinate fake influencers who are a perfect fit and give you all of this hallucinated information. And you're getting so excited. You're like, oh my gosh, this podcast is perfect for me. This YouTuber is perfect for me. And then you click, try to learn out more about them, only to find out it didn't exist. And that is still a little bit of a problem, but it's not nearly the problem it was for the 8 months I've been working on this. So I hope you give it a shot. Influencer Finder. You can find all of the Patron Toolbox tools at patrontoolbox.com. If you're a patron at the $10 level or higher, you get unlimited access to all 60 plus. I think I'm at 60 patron tools now. It's definitely over 50 patron tools, and that all includes AI Thomas, where you can pick my brain and it will search all of the past episodes of all of my podcasts, and many, many other tools that we won't go into today. Patrontoolbox.com.
So me and Thomas were talking about this last week. We're going to put together AI Jonathan, okay? But it's not going to be an AI. It's just going to be a database of like randomly selected sayings of mine. And so you'll put your thing in there. I'll be like, maybe you should whine less. Super fun stuff. I think it'll be a blast.
It's really easy to code. You just have it say, actually, I'm a Marine. And that's all it does.
First of all, I'm a Marine. All right. So next story is this one is a big deal. So we covered a couple months ago, I think, that NaNoWriMo, the organization, shut down. The National Novel Writing Month is no longer a thing, but now it has been replaced with something called Novel November. Novel November has been put up by Pro Writing Aid and Kickstarter and Wattpad, 11 Reader and Scrivener. These are the organizations that have partnered with this Novel November idea. It's supposed to mirror the format, 50,000 words in 30 days. There's progress tracking. There are badges for milestones, building good writing habits. There's a mentorship program. There's all kinds of stuff that is in this that if you liked NaNoWriMo, this may be something you want to check out. If Novel November doesn't fit you, there's a few other options. You have Novel 90 by Autocrit. You have Novel Quest, which is Noku. I don't know how you say that.
What's really funny to me
Nakwa
is what the straw that broke the camel's back for NaNoWriMo. So NaNoWriMo was really poorly run, and it was probably going to crash anyway. But what caused them to kind of catch on fire all at once was all this drama over AI.
Yeah.
And Novel November, I'm looking at their sponsors. Half of the sponsors are AI companies.
They're going to be. They have the money right now.
So canceling NaNoWriMo as like trying to like stick it to the AI companies.
Well,
didn't work.
NaNoWriMo,
the company hosting it, prowritingaid.com/novel-november. That's the website. They don't own novelnovember.com, which is for sale. They should buy it, or it's probably for sale. But Pro Writing Aid is an AI company that helps authors with writing. So anyway, it's just very funny to me.
NaNoWriMo didn't go down because of its concept, writing 50,000 words in 30 days. It didn't go down of its concept of helping authors. It went down because there were legal issues with the fact that they gave like people on the sex offender registry access to minors through their mentorship thing. And then the AI controversy kind of eroded their goodwill overall in the community, but they were actually killed by this.
And before that, they kicked all the conservatives out of the community. There's lots of drama for NaNoWriMo. We don't need to rehash it. I think Pro Writing Aid is a much better company to run it. I think they're going to run it as a for-profit endeavor.
Yeah, they're a company. They want to survive, so trust that. You can trust a company that wants to make money. If you're in a nonprofit, you might check them.
It's prowritingaid.com/novel-november. I'll post it in the chat here, and I will try to remember to add it to the description. If I forget, just leave a comment for those of you watching the replay, and I'll add the link to the description. It's free to sign up. 50,000 words,
comment,
1 month.
And subscribe.
Yes, we always forget to mention that. Do you like us? Do you like the novel, the author update? Please like this video. It helps more people find the show.
You should see me and Thomas at the end of the video. It's like, we forgot to say it again, didn't we? Yeah.
We are professionals.
We're good at what we do.
So a few weeks ago, there was a very famous stabbing on a subway. In this young woman was bleeding out. It was a very tragic stabbing, and there was all these people sitting around her on the subway. And at first, nobody helped her. And so for like a minute, they just kind of sit, seeing that she's dying, and don't do anything to help. And then eventually, somebody comes over to help her and does first aid. And I was realizing, oh, this is a problem with society overall. That's actually something that authors can help with. And so there's two pieces of this problem, both of which I think authors can help with in their fiction specifically. So the first is this concept of the bystander effect, where when something bad happens, we assume somebody else is going to do something about it. So there's a famous incident in the 1960s where there's this terrible crime taking place that I won't describe, that for YouTube reasons. And like 60 people or dozens of people watch in New York City the crime happening, and nobody calls the police for like 20 minutes because they all assume somebody else is going to call the police. And you can help fight this by working in characters into your books that have the worldview that I always help. This is something that was drilled into our heads in Boy Scouts, right? Do a good turn daily. If there is a car accident, you always stop and try to render aid unless there's an ambulance there already. And that kind of worldview needs to be more common, more of a guardian worldview. And the other problem that happens is that people don't know how to help or what they know is wrong. And this is where authors are actually a part of the problem. So there's some common first aid myths that get perpetuated through movies and TV and through books. And so we're going to debunk some of these myths. But first, I want to kind of go into some really basic first aid rules of thumb. So, in terms of order of importance, you have, if somebody's heart is not beating, that's the most important thing. The next most important thing is that they're breathing. The next most important thing is that the blood stays inside of them, although that could be the most important thing depending on how fast it's leaving. And then the last most important thing is broken bones. You'll notice bullets are nowhere on this list. So I'm gonna skip
Always
ahead.
take the bullet out first.
So there is this Hollywood myth that's in a lot of books too, where someone is shot and there's this like intense hurry to pull the bullet out of the injured person.
Why?
And so
it's plugging the hole.
I just want to say, if you believe this myth, and I don't blame you if you do, because it is like every single TV show seems to have this. There are Vietnam veterans who were shot by the Viet Cong that still have the bullets in them to this very day, and they are still alive and healthy. Sometimes it's not worth it to remove the bullet, even in a surgical suite. And it's never worth it to remove the bullet in a first aid situation, because the bullet is not
so
the problem.
Dirty, so not sanitary.
And
you're going to go so septic so fast.
Also, if you're like, oh, I write epic fantasy, this isn't going to affect me. Okay, so the same is even more true with arrows. So I want you to imagine a Ziploc bag full of water. You seal the Ziploc bag with water. Now you take a pencil and you stab the Ziploc bag full of water. What is leaking out of the Ziploc bag? Nothing, because the pencil is blocking the hole. Now I want you to remove the pencil. What is going to now happen to the Ziploc bag? Bloop, 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 bloop. Right? Like
No.
all the water is going to bloop out.
There's a part of the pencil that's wider, and you take it and you rip it.
So please take these. There's other ways of adding urgency to a scene other than perpetuating first aid myths, because real people learn their first aid from the fiction they consume.
Yes.
And then it causes them to render bad first aid or not render first aid at all. So I want your heroes, next time someone's shot with an arrow, to just break off the arrow and leave it in. And I'll say Hollywood's actually better at the arrow first aid than it is at the bullet first aid.
They are changing that around, because people are like, no.
For some reason, a giant arrow sticking out of you is fine, but a teeny tiny little bullet somewhere inside of the body, we gotta clear the table and rush them onto the thing. So anyway, leave it in. One of the treatments that they would have, from my understanding, is to cauterize the wound. So like a battlefield, sometimes they would have like hot irons behind the battle lines for rapid cauterization.
Just for this.
And where it's most important is well, this is going to be gross. We're totally going to get demonetized. But this is for first aid purposes.
Yay!
Limbs. So you have major veins and arteries going in and out of a limb, and getting a limb cut off is often fatal because of the bleeding. So yes, someone can live very happily for decades without an arm, but if their arm is cut off and it's not treated correctly, they will lose it. So the first thing you want to do if someone gets an arm cut off in a battlefield situation is put a tourniquet on it. But another thing you want to do is cauterize those blood vessels. And I actually have a little bit of experience with this, because in my younger days, I would work a little bit on my grandparents' ranch. And my grandmother did not like her cows to have horns because she was afraid someone was going to get gored. Now, I didn't know this, but horns have veins and arteries going inside of them. So they're not just a bone, they actually have a blood supply. And when you cut off the horn of a cow, you can see little squirts of blood squirting out of the horn of the cow. So how do you fix it? You cauterize the horn, which is a smell that I can't remember, and I'm thankful for that. But I remember it being a smell at the time. If I ever smell it again, it would probably come back to me. So that's not what you want to do. So part of this is just good, like understanding to have better fiction. You would never cauterize a wound. I'm not recommending that because we live in a world where we can first 911 to get somebody to come and deal with that sort of thing. But a tourniquet is in a first aid situation is almost always the right call. I had a cousin who was a cop who used to be a Marine, and he used his tourniquet all the time. He used it when he was in the Marines, and he used it as a cop all the time because you can stop bleeding so effectively with a tourniquet. And in a modern situation, you're never going to lose a limb because you're only trying to stop the bleeding for a few minutes until the professionals show up. All right.
Yes.
Go ahead.
So there's
I'm ranting here a little bit.
It's okay. No, it's great. So I learned world history by playing Age of Empires. Okay. Now I went to school. I was homeschooled. I had tons of things that taught me about world history, and I remembered everything from playing Age of Empires and Age of Empires 2. The fiction taught me about it. Okay. And when it came up, I always accessed those files in my brain because I spent way more engaged time with them. When you put it in your book, you are helping to train people in how to do proper first aid, because when people are in a panic situation or they're under the influence of adrenaline, they're going to default back to what they knew or where they've seen someone else do it before, which is why a lot of people are doing TV first aid, or, if they read lots of books, they're doing novel first aid. I saw this happen in boot camp. Okay. We do, and somebody asked this earlier. Yes, we do have a lifesaver course in boot camp, and it was hysterical because you'd have Marines come in, and then to simulate a combat environment with the adrenaline, you'd have 4 drill instructors screaming around your head. You had to analyze the mannequin, find the injury on the mannequin, and then treat the injury on the mannequin using the steps you had been trained in for a week. Well, you have 4 guys screaming at you, and this simulates gunfire and explosions and all kinds of stuff just going on around you. And it's like, I'm going to die because these guys are going to kill me right here. Well, I got to watch one guy come in. I was the scribe, and I was grading or recording the grades that the drill instructors were giving. This kid came in. Now, the mannequins didn't have heads, okay? They were the kind of training gear that just didn't have heads, okay? This kid ran in. He's getting screamed at by all 4 drill instructors. He drops down to his knees and immediately ties a tourniquet around the neck of the headless mannequin. All 4 drill instructors stopped. Like, it was silent for like a second. And then they started screaming at him, "Save a life! Save his life! Do it now!" That kid got to go again.
All right. So a few more first aid. I remember in Boy Scouts, we had a female dummy for our CPR training, and that was high drama for 12-year-olds. That's all I'll say. So if someone has been stabbed, what is the most important thing that you do right away? You put pressure on the wound, preferably with some kind of cloth to keep constant, steady pressure, and then a tourniquet, depending on where the stab is. If there's trauma, so somebody's in a car crash or there's an airplane crash,
or somebody said a bad word to them,
they don't get out of an airplane crash and start shooting their gun and being an action star. They because there's such a thing as shock, and if somebody is in shock, their judgment falls. And I will say some books get this really good. In fact, there's a genre of book, noir books, and even the Dresden Files books gets this really good. So in the early Dresden Files, Harry Dresden gets injured, and those injuries have a high level of verisimilitude, as somebody put it, very accurate. And at one point, it's first-person narration, and he gets clubbed over the back of the head. And for the next 6 hours of the in story world narration, he becomes super unreliable of a narrator, and his judgment gets really bad. And suddenly, as the reader, you are experiencing the concussion along with the protagonist. And that is really good writing. Now, at no point did he get good first aid treatment. In fact, people kept trying. He's like, you look awful. You need to go to a doctor. He's like, no, I don't need to go to a doctor.
I need to keep going.
So I'm not saying that you have to have like a character who's like, okay, now it's time to do the CPR, do so many compressions. You don't have to do that. You just have to accurately portray reality, and portraying this concussion and portraying kind of the trauma and even the shock a little bit, that sense of calm that comes on you. Because this is one of the really tragic things, the stabbing in this train that was caught on film. She gets stabbed and she doesn't realize how bad it is. So so at first she starts bleeding and she's kind of bewildered. The shock sets in almost immediately. And then she realizes how much she's bleeding. She puts her hands in her face and just cries and dies alone. It's so tragic.
Yeah.
It's why it's been so viral on Twitter. And what she's experiencing is trauma in addition to the stabbing.
Yeah.
All right. So let me hit a few more myths real quick. One really common myth is that CPR works right away, and it works almost every time. So in TV and movies, CPR has a really high success rate, and they only have to do a handful of compressions. And I'll give them a pass. For movies and TV, I'll give them a pass, especially if there's a real
because they don't have 20 minutes to give this.
Right. They don't have 20 minutes to give it. And if there's an actual actor who's getting compressions on them,
they don't want broken ribs.
Right. And so often they'll do it with improper technique for safety, because real CPR breaks ribs. In fact, I remember in Boy Scouts, I got dinged on one of my board of reviews for this, because one of the people on the board of the review had watched too many movies and thought I was wrong, when in reality I was right. And I came back for the return board review and didn't have that guy on. I got passed for my first class merit badge, or my first class rank. Not that I'm still bitter about it 30 years later.
Yeah, you sound fine.
I'm fine. I'm totally fine. Another one is oil on burns, and this one is the problem with this myth is that it's actually good advice, but it's applied inappropriately. So the most important thing to do when someone is recently burned is to cool the burn. And oil traps heat inside. Like swimmers in the Olympics who used to free swim through really cold water would cover themselves with oil to help retain their body heat in the water, and maybe to help them swim faster. Maybe it was all psychological.
Better photo op after too.
Yeah. So you don't want to put the oil on the burn right away, but a burn from like previous days, potentially treating it with oil might make sense. But you want to just put a cool compress immediately on a burn. Another really big one, this is really common in Westerns, is sucking out snakebite venom. I've seen so many YouTube videos debunking this. There's basically no way, even with like an industrial strength vacuum, to get snakebite venom out in any sort of realistic way. I know you want to have the romantic interest, saving the damsel in distress who's been bit by a snake, and it's this romantic. Don't do it. It doesn't work. In fact, it's often just makes the situation worse. So
it would make a great scene though if you had a guy do this and everyone afterwards like, what are you doing?
There you go. Yeah. So what you really do is you lower the effective limb so that the venom doesn't pass through the body as quickly, and you do everything you can to calm down that person so their heart rate will drop, so that the venom doesn't spread as quickly. And you can actually build up a resistance to venom. So every time you get bit by a snake or stung by a bee, your body has more of a resistance to that until in some parts of the world, there's a famous incident where King Mithridates basically invented anti-venom by observing people in North Africa, I think Carthage, get bit by these vipers and it have no effect. And so he started studying microdosing of poisons. He's known as the Poison King. He's the first guy to have an immunity to iocane powder by taking small amounts of it. Iocane powder is actually real. It's called anthrax, the king of poison and the poison of kings. And we are so getting demonetized on this episode. So final one is tilting the head back for a nosebleed. You'll sometimes see this. I actually have personal experience with this. So I had a surgery, and in the recovery, the surgery went wrong, and my nose bled for like an hour, and really bad. And I ended up in the emergency room because the blood was so much it started coming out of my eyes. But you have to lean forward. If you lean back, if you lean your head back with a nosebleed, the blood goes in your lungs, and now you're coughing up blood. You don't want that. It doesn't help. What do you do for nosebleed? The same thing you do for any bleeding: pressure.
Oh, I thought you were going to say suck the blood out of the nose.
Here's the thing. I'm actually personally very squeamish on a lot of this medical stuff. My wife loves reading nurse blogs, and she has like a really high tolerance. But I did get first aid training at various times in various places, and I personally get very triggered. And I think we can do better. And I've actually had the idea while we're talking about creating an AI tool that will fact check first aid stuff. I'm not sure if I can build it, but kind of like the historical fact checker that I built, I may build one for medical events. And so you may hear if I have enough trauma in my life, we may have a medical fact checker.
Seriously, there is a lot of stuff that you can do. One of the best things you can do is just establish a safe perimeter so that people who don't know what they're doing. We had a drive-by shooting close to my house, probably like a year and a half ago or something, and they burned the car in this alleyway where we drop our trash, and they come and get the trash. And so I'm already moving. I heard the gunshots. I was already moving. I was already heading to it. I heard the tires squealing. I knew they were gone. I knew there was no combat situation. So I show up and I see the burning car. I'm like, okay, they ditched their vehicle and they switched to a getaway vehicle, so they're on their way out. I had this dumb civilian, first of all, pull the car in front of the trash alleyway, so now emergency personnel cannot reach the burning vehicle if somebody was in trouble. I yell at him, sergeant style, order him to get out of the way of emergency vehicles. And then he got out of the car and started running towards the burning vehicle. I'm like, what are you doing? I'm like watching suicide happen in slow motion. So I hit him and I moved him out of the way. I'm like, what are you doing? He's like, somebody could be in there. I'm like, dude, they would be long dead by now. Do you hear any screaming? No. What I'm worried about is a fuel tank going off. Like, stay back.
Although fuel tanks don't explode in real life the way they do in the movies.
They can still rupture and spray all over you.
It's true. It's true. In fact, the fear of fuel tanks exploding, I was in a really bad car crash with an 18-wheeler on I-35. And I was unconscious. I'm dangling from an upside down car. And these folks get me out of the car. They help me out of the car. They're really nice. I'm kind of like fading in and out of consciousness. And I'm right next to the car, and I'm in a lot of pain. And I am remembering my Boy Scout training that in a situation like this, you don't want to move somebody too much, just in case there's a spinal injury.
Yeah.
Moving them actually could sever the spinal cord. That's why you'll often see EMS will like put little things around people's heads and necks, because as long as the spinal cord isn't severed, the bones will heal just fine, but the spinal cord won't. And so you can lose the use of your legs or whatever. And they notice that the car is leaking gasoline, and they get concerned that the car could catch on fire because it's leaking gasoline. So they start dragging me all over this field, and I'm like in and out of consciousness. I'm trying to articulate, don't do it. Don't drag me. Fortunately, my back was fine, and I had a miraculous recovery. But they were very well-meaning. And this is what we're kind of getting to. There's a lot of people who are well-meaning, but they don't know what to do in these sorts of situations.
Yeah.
And I suspect that if you have violence in your book and you get first aid training, that as a professional author in the eyes of the IRS, that first aid training would probably be
it's tax deductible. Yeah.
And
absolutely.
it's in part of me wants to host a writer's retreat sometime and do these sorts of things, like bring in subject matter experts.
Yeah, that would be fun.
Teach gun safety and gun shooting and accuracy, but also like first aid and stuff like that.
Also, you have different cultures of violence, right? So there's this really fun story that happened in Washington, D.C. when the Marines were there, and they were supporting local police as they were trying to get things under control or whatever. And this DC cop, there was a domestic disturbance. There was gunfire coming out of the house. So this cop moved up and yelled to the Marines behind him, "Cover me." This means something very different to police people. Okay? Cover me means, hey, watch out, watch my back. I'm moving up to the door. For Marines, cover me is I'm moving up. You need to put everything's heads down. And so the Marines dumped all of their mags into the house, blew out the front of the house. The windows were gone. They just raked the whole thing. And the cop is like, well, the domestic disturbance ended. The guy came out with his hands up and everything was fine. But you have to understand there's different cultures of responding to these kinds of situations. If you're in a combat situation and a Marine gets hit, the Marines don't go to help him. That's the doc's job. Okay, or it's the sergeant's job if the doc isn't there. What the Marines do is increase the rate of fire because now the doc is moving and the doc has to be protected above all else because he's saving Marine lives. All right, so we are dumping fire in all directions everywhere. They actually said, I read an intel thing one time, it's like, don't wing a Marine. Because if you hit one and he doesn't die, things get worse.
The last thing you want is to make a Marine even angrier because he started off angry and now he's super angry.
Well, he started off professional. He was reacting according to his training. Now you done made it personal.
And this is actually a really important distinction in why we have this concept in American law where we don't use the American military for any kind of police action inside of the United States. So we have a whole special branch of the military that is trained for police actions. It's called the National Guard. And we, like, you'll notice Marines never operate inside the United States because their worldview of if it moves, shoot it until it stops shooting and until it stops moving is very good when you're over there killing the bad guys. And, you know, we got to do something about those Nazis in Germany. It's really bad in a situation where, let's say you're dealing with a riot. And these rioters could become law-abiding, tax-paying citizens tomorrow if the situation can be handled appropriately. And it's why the National Guard gets special training and why the National Guard comes from often the neighborhoods that they're protecting. Like I remember during the Black Lives Matter protests, there was a famous incident where somebody's yelling at one of the National Guard's people, like, you know, you're an invader or whatever. He's like, what are you talking about? I'm from 4th Street. like he's like from 6 blocks away.
Right down the road, man.
Yeah. Like, I'm your neighbor. These are, and it's a very different mindset. And police are even more that way. So police actually can't use violence unless they can trigger the same self-defense law that you trigger, so at least in Texas. So I was on the grand jury in Texas, and I was on the grand jury for an officer involved shootings. We got briefed by a assistant district attorney on the laws governing this. And for a police officer to use deadly force, they have to feel in threat of their life or the life of somebody around them.
Yes.
And so which is not the case for a Marine. In uniform on a battlefield, seeing somebody else in uniform on a battlefield, the Marine does not need to fear death in order to take lethal action. It's a completely different worldview. And we have rambled way off of our first aid.
That's what we call an opportunity.
Anyway, one of the things we're thinking about doing, and those of you in the chat, let me know if you like this. We've been getting a lot of feedback on the Zeitgeist topics, and we're thinking about having a Zeitgeist story kind of at the end of every episode. And this first aid story is only kind of Zeitgeist tangentially, but it is kind of inspired by current news. So our thought is we'd put Zeitgeist at the end, so people who are just here for the latest on the Anthropic case or what the latest royalty situation is for Amazon, they can bounce. But for people who do enjoy the Zeitgeist conversation, they can stick around. We also clip every individual news segment and post it to a different channel called Author Update.
So if you need to reference back and see it again, you can head to that channel.
Yeah. So just let us know in the chat if you want us to have a Zeitgeist story every single week. There's lots of, it is some work to put those together because Zeitgeist isn't breaking news, but it is, I think, really important to be familiar with what's going on in the culture.
It's atmospherics, which is really good for anyone operating in any kind of environment, especially when you have to create something that interacts with that environment. When you're marketing your book, you have to know how to speak to people who are living in the atmospherics that the book has been produced in. So this stuff is really good for those of you who are more direct people. this stuff is really good for you to understand how to target your marketing.
I will say the Zeitgeist segments get us the most negative comments. They get us often the most comments, but they get us the most negative comments for sure. So if you like it, make sure to like and subscribe. Maybe ring the bell.
Here's the thing. Zeitgeist is subjective, right? So you're getting our take on the Zeitgeist, right? Me and Thomas are both conservative Christians, okay? Our take on the Zeitgeist will come from that kind of thing. If you want a different kind of Zeitgeist take, go start your own show. But
or find other shows that cover craft and culture.
I would actually recommend getting a number of Zeitgeist takes so you understand everything going on. Even if people you don't agree with, you think are wrong, just so you know what the wrong people are saying, you know?
I listen to a daily or almost daily to NPR, and I daily listen to Wall Street Journal, right? So I try to make an effort to consume news from the other side, so to speak. So I also get news from the Daily Wire. But if you're on the other side, I encourage you to do the same, right? And to kind of understand both sides so you can articulate them. So that's well said, Jonathan.
So I don't think we're going to get into this one right now. We only have 5 minutes left. Thomas does have a Q&A. He's got to do at the end.
Don't start it. So we will try. If the chat looks like it's universal for yes, Zeitgeist stories at the end. So we will try to have a Zeitgeist segment at the end, and you'll just know that once we start the Zeitgeist conversation, there's not going to be any more quote unquote hard or breaking news after that. That'll be the final story for the day. And so if you don't want to hear about the Zeitgeist, or if this particular angle of the Zeitgeist isn't interesting to you, but I could totally see doing more like movie review breakdowns like what we did for Mary Poppins. I thought that was a lot of fun.
Right. And a lot of the, Thomas is talking about me doing dev edits. I do a Zeitgeist analysis as part of my dev edits. It's like, how is your audience now going to react to the manuscript you just produced? And I'll help you tweak it and we'll go back and forth. I think arguing is really, really important here. So if you're not arguing with your dev editor, or your dev editor doesn't want you to argue with them, I think that's a problem, because iron sharpeneth iron. It's really good for friction is good for producing sharpness. It's good for lethality.
Yeah, if you're just accepting all changes from your dev editor, you're not getting your best edits. And if you're just rejecting all edits from your dev editor, you're also not getting your best edit. So that when Jonathan's saying arguing, he doesn't mean like getting angry. He's meaning like presenting your case. Real quick before we go, if you're a patron, I'm doing a patrons only Q&A in 15 minutes. So, and if you want to become a patron, you have 15 minutes to become a patron. I'm going to be hosting a Q&A. You can ask me anything. It's patreon.com/novelmarketing. or novelmarketing.com/patrons, probably a better way to get there. Also, Novel Marketing Conference. Remember, you only have 3 days left to sign up. novelmarketingconference.com. And Jonathan's Kickstarter is ending in just a few days. Jonathan, what's the name of your Kickstarter?
The Kickstarter is the Shades of Black Origins Anthology. I'll throw a link into it in the notes so you guys can find it there. I've had a ton of people back at the $5 level for no reward. Thank you guys. I appreciate the support, but at some point I hope you guys read the book.
All right. I'm Thomas Umstattd Jr.
And I'm Jonathan Sugar Jr.
Live long and prosper.